Now then, what a fine and beautiful morning, eh? There's hardly a breath and the sun's shining, the birds are tweeting, and it's time to collect the firewood out of the woods. Now it's dry enough so we're not going to create ruts or damage, and we want the firewood in the stacks so then we can put a sheet of tin over it and it can sit there for a year or two quietly drying before I convert it. So it's all part of the process. It's like there's no rush, but you just need to get on with it. There's no worse than just going, oh, it's in the woods, and then 2 years later it's still, oh, it's in the woods. So you need to crack on, but in a calm and collected way. So I'm just trying to enjoy the morning, and we'll just take you through the process really. So we'll just see how this video turns out. You don't want to see me just moving timber all the time, but we'll get some of this trailer loaded up behind me. Hopefully you can see it, and crack on. Right, next. That'll do. These ones here, it was a standing dead, so I shall select these out and maybe cut some of this up for next winter. This is the compost heap that's been working away for the last couple of years. We've moved on to the next one, and it's high time we started putting a load of this in the veg plot. And this is quite friable stuff. There's some bits of stick in there, but I don't mind that. Just helps to break up the soil somewhat. That's a little bit tough. So there you go, we'll dig this into the veg plot and it will just help with everything. It's all part of the process. So here we are with the wood stacks. and that one I've already converted this year, so I'm starting to refill it. A lot of this stuff that I just collected will go in there, but a couple of those bits of standing dead that I pointed out I'm going to put to one side and I'll convert them this year. It's a bit fiddly. To get the stack nice, you've got to spend a bit of time. And at the ends, obviously, you've got a load of logs, and then you put two that way, and then a load of logs and two that way, to create a nice end to the stack. I'll just show you what I mean over here. There you go. See, there's those big logs, then there's a small log the other way, then some big ones, then some small ones, and it just ties the whole end together. Simple enough, but you just got to take your time to select the right logs. This one here, it will go on the end. Hopefully you can hear that woodpecker occasionally. It's up in the poplars. Nice to hear. You wouldn't have heard that 10 years ago round here, and 20 odd years ago there was virtually no wildlife. Industrial agriculture, we're all aware of the evils of that. That one wants right on the end. That one can roll up to it. And this is one of those standing dead, so that goes in the pile for now. You get the idea. I'm just going to crack on with this. Frogs are mating in there. They were just croaking away a minute ago. But there's a load of there's a frog there. But somewhere down in this lot, and I can't really see it through this viewfinder. They're wriggling around in there somewhere, and there's a load of frog spawn, but I'd have to search around for it. Anyway, the froggies are having a nice time. Right, There's another load. Those couple of logs on the top of those standing dead, so but they'll go somewhere else, but the rest will go in the stack. And that log at the back there, that's the final height of the stack, so it'll only get slightly higher as it moves forward. That way when the tin goes on the top, it'll drain backwards, not forwards. We don't want all the wet coming out on this travelled area, as it were. So I'm just going to stack that lot. You don't need to watch me do that. Yeah, and another one. Let's get that unloaded. Need to just get rid of that side branch. Nearly there. We need another 5 or 6 loads to finish this stack. So that'll see the day out. Here we go. Bees on the early. Let's see if we can get this one. Yep. Early flowering plants. You can see the huge pollen sacs on their legs. They're really enjoying themselves. Difficult to keep up with the camera. There we go. We like to provide as many flowers as possible this time of year. And all this lot will disappear within a month. All the plants will die right down to nothing. But I've seen a couple of butterflies flitting about recently. It's an insect supermarket. Gorgeous, isn't it? Right then, if you remember, I was talking about dead knots staying on trees. Now there's a knot just there, and you can see that it stayed. It was dead on the outside, but it's stayed right to the heart, and there's the heart. This one's dead. Obviously the heart is off centre, but it goes all the way into the middle. Okay, and just here on this one you can see where there's some dead bark, so maybe it was live to that point and it was dead further on. This one's even more interesting if we can zoom down on it. We've got a dead branch, yeah, and there's the dead bark to here, there's the heart, and on this one, yeah, it's actually been snapped off or cut off at some point. So you've got the live branch, then it becomes a dead branch because of the black ring round it, and then it's cut off because there is no branch there. So you need, ideally, this is what we would talk about with a knotty core. We want all the knots in that sort of size centre of the tree, so that then you've got clean timber on the outside. By clean I mean with no knots in it. So with this is a piece of larch, so to get boat skin larch you need all that clean timber, so you haven't got a dead knot that will push out and let the water through. Anyway, that's what I was talking about earlier on in one of the other videos about dead knots hanging on and degrading the value of the timber and its utility. Now then, it's another day and the fixathon continues. Yeah, we have got a broken spring on the back of this motor. A few months ago that I figured it's sitting a bit strange, sitting down at the back end a bit, but it's been wet and horrible and nasty, so there was no opportunity to fix it or even investigate it. But since things have dried up, I was at a roll underneath. There we go. It's the passenger side again. It's the one that I did, I'm not sure now, a year and a half ago, something like that. If I remember, I'll put a link up over there to the video I did about it, because there's lots of technical details about the bolts and all that sort of thing. But so I ordered a spring, and of course now we're in stay at home as much as possible, which is great, and the sun is shining and it's dry and I'm not going to get rained on. I can crack on with this, and if I don't get it finished today, it doesn't really matter, because I'm not going to go tearing off to work because it's all been cancelled. You know, and every trouble has its own silver lining, yeah, and this is this one. I can just crack on with this, peace and quiet, no rush. Delightful. And referring to fixathons, yeah, that's a reference to a guy called Jeff Bradshaw, and he runs a channel called Elderly Iron, and some of his early videos are quite just, let's fix it, let's not mess around, let's just fix it. And he did a very nice series about getting a Pontiac 389 V8 engine that had stood upside down in a yard for a while, and he wanted to put it into a big truck that he was sort of, it was his dream truck, as it were. I don't think he actually completed the project yet, but that Pontiac 389 repair video, getting the engine running again, I think there's 6 parts to the series, and some of them are just highly entertaining. Well worth watching if you've got nothing else to do, which I suspect a lot of people haven't at the moment. So that's why I'm increasing my video output, just to show people that actually you can repair your own stuff, yeah, and your identity is not your job. There was a comment on my last video, and we sort of got to the point where we were sort of referring to identity and to feeling all right about life. Let's put it in a slightly different way. So your identity is a tricky one, and those people who their only identity is their job are in for serious trouble when they start to retire, because all they are is somebody who used to do something. So a general interest in this, that and the other, and all consuming hobbies are a brilliant idea, because it gets you through loads of hassle, and the downside of things. Anyway, besides the point, we've got to fix this, and there's no point me just rambling on to you when this job needs doing. So let's have a look. So there we go. That's the broken bit of spring. So inside this turret, inside the car, you can take off a cover, and there are two bolts that hold the top of the spring assembly in place. I'll just do a quick view of that. Then we undo those, and there's a bolt down here which I did replace. I'm virtually sure it's this one. I replaced about 1.5 years ago, and I greased it up well, so I'm assuming that will come undone quite easily. Let's just grab hold of the camera on wobbly cam. So this cover comes off, and to reveal those openings, and down in there are two 14mm nuts you have to undone, and that's easy. So jack the car up, it's on a jack and it's on big blocks, and we need to get into just down there, right through there. There's a bolt at the bottom of the shock absorber. We just need to get onto that and undo that, and then once that's slackened off, we actually have to get a jack in between the suspension and the frame and just jack the suspension down a little bit to free everything off. That came undone nice and easy because it was greased properly. So I've got a piece of box section that goes on the back of on the bottom of the diff, and I've jacked it up against the body here just to push this lot down, and then the bolt, having been undone, will wiggle out. As you can see, the strut is now loose. I think we just need a bit more on there. Just to push that down. There it goes. And that's the bolt out. A little bit of corrosion there, even though I greased it. Yeah. I'll wire brush that off. In fact, this is not the new bolt. It must have been the other side that I did. This is an old bolt. So, and I remember taking the one side, the spring had broken and I changed it. The other side, I released the bolt and greased it, but obviously not quite enough. That sort of grease though, but it wants to be better than that. But it did come undone, thank goodness. Otherwise it's a right struggle. Right, I've got the compressors, spring compressors in place. The secret here is to keep them even, and these came from Uncle Harold. And if you've not seen any Uncle Harold videos on my channel, then please go and check them out. They're absolutely sparkling. Old-fashioned engineer, been an engineer all his life, made a lot of his own tools, These look like they're homemade. I've used them before, and no doubt Harold will have done as well, innumerable times. Right, no, it's still under pressure just there. These have got really good hooks on them. They hook right round the spring. Right. That's 14mm bolt, and it's loose from the washer, so there's no pressure there, and an Allen key in the top. Okay, so that lock comes off. And there's the top, and we'll just release the pressure on that and then fit the new spring. Right, let's just clean this up. Doesn't look too bad. But we don't want to encourage corrosion by leaving all this muck on there. And I think I'll just put a little smear of grease around. Tin of Duckham's grease. I think this was rescued from Harold's workshops whilst they were throwing it all away. There we go. That'll just slow things up a bit. And first time I ever bought a new spring. That's not true. I put a brand new spring on one of my Fronteras. I went for the MOT. I checked everything out, absolutely everything, and booked in for the MOT, which is a Ministry of Transport test for vehicles once a year. This is a few years ago now, and between here and the MOT test station, which was about 5 miles, a rear spring broke. I didn't realise it had broken, and when the MOT tester was looking, he went, "You've got a broken spring." I said, "You what?" And of course the joint was bright shiny, so it had just happened, because they rust quite quickly. So you know, had to go off and change the spring, come back, and la-di-la. But there you go. That's the cussedness of life, isn't it? So there we have the new spring. Get that fitted. I'll just fiddle with this a minute to get it right. Ah, of course, I've got to compress the spring. So we'll just do that. So with a bit of a struggle, I've got this back in here. There's the new spring. Here's the bolt that I've wire brushed up, rotary wire brush, and then putting copper slip on this. I think this is the one that I replaced last time, and obviously the wet has got in there even though I greased it well, so I'm greasing it even better. So I'll just put that back together, and then there's the carbon filter to put back together and the wheel to go on, and etc, etc. So there you go, car's done. I had that brake apart on that side. It's always useful to take the pads out, clean everything up, make sure it's moving properly, because you know pads can tighten up over time, especially over winter. So when you get the opportunity, have your brakes apart. Press the piston back in and also release the bleed screw, so that that fluid that's been in the back of the piston, yeah, gets pushed out. So you're removing any potential sort of water trap or anything like that. Put some copper slip on various slidey parts. Make sure the pads move very easily. Yeah, put it back together. I also changed the ATF on this whilst I'm here. Yeah, we're having a bit of a motor repair and maintenance morning. So that's spring replaced, brake overhauled. The pads were alright, but they were a bit sticky and the sliders were a bit sticky, so clean it all up, make sure they move right. Change the ATF, because I suspect the ATF, automatic transmission fluid, hadn't been changed on this car very often. So when I first got it, the automatic transmission was a bit sticky and a bit slow to change. I changed the fluid and it was fine, but then, you know, we've got 25,000 miles later. I looked at it and it's a bit brown and horrible, so it's time to change it again before it starts to give me problems. So, you know, you only change half of the fluid, so therefore you're putting fresh fluid in, but it's mixing up with the old stuff, and you know, it may be that in another year's time I'll change it again, just for efficiency, so it changes up quickly, so we're not using as much fuel. Anyway, on with the fixathon. And as the afternoon progresses, then the sea breeze is starting, because it's very sunny. Yeah, all the air rises in the centre of the country and draws in fresh air or cooler air from the sea, and of course it creates an onshore breeze. And here we have the plum blossom just starting to open out. Yeah, there's just a bee there just pollinating some of it, and of course we've been taking processed plum out of the freezer, so this is all part of the cycle. So there you go. One of these barrows, it's a double wheeled barrow, so it's quite big. One of these represents 2 days burning during the winter. So we've got plenty to cut and keep well stocked up. Now, if we don't use it all in one winter, that's fine. But not having enough, if you get a bad winter, can be a pain in the neck. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's a bit of a series of the things that I've been at during the week. Just getting on round the property, looking after ourselves. Cheers for now.